The story begins with a hitman named Marcus, seen torturing a man in a dimly lit room. Moments later, his phone rings. His boss gives him a new mission, ordering him to track down a man named Guy. According to the information Marcus receives, Guy has escaped to Italy. He's no ordinary target, but a former subordinate who betrayed his boss. Before leaving for Italy, Marcus finishes what he started, executing the man he'd been torturing without hesitation. Meanwhile, in a quiet Italian village, we meet Guy, the man Marcus is after. He's just arrived, keeping his head down and his eyes sharp. Guy knows that his former boss will never stop hunting him. The reason behind this relentless chase. Guy once refused to build an advanced weapon for the organization he worked for, believing it would endanger countless lives. A former Marine and weapons expert, he chose his conscience over his orders, and that decision turned him into a wanted man. This is Off the Grid. Later, Guy stops by a small shop to buy a bottle of water. There, he notices the shopkeeper tinkering with a laptop, trying to run a weapons simulator. One quick glance is all it takes for Guy to see the mistake in the design, and he silently fixes it. The shopkeeper, whose name is Chase, immediately realizes that Guy must be someone highly skilled. As Guy prepares to leave, Chase's older sister walks in. Her name is Josie, and she can't help but be flustered by Guy's calm, confident presence. Guy keeps his composure, remaining polite but distant. As he steps outside, Josie gathers the courage to speak to him, inviting him to visit her cafe next door. Guy smiles faintly and says he will, but not today. Then he walks away, heading into the woods, where he plans to hide. The scene shifts to Marcus, who's already planning his hunt with his team. The boss's right-hand man, Pau, informs him that Guy is likely hiding somewhere deep in the Italian forest. Pau knows this area well, because it's where Guy's late father once owned a small cabin. He orders Marcus to go on ahead, while he and the rest of the team finish business with the boss. Back in the forest, Guy arrives at his father's old cabin. It's quiet, remote, and perfect for laying low. But he doesn't waste time. He sets up several traps around the area to prepare for an ambush, knowing it's only a matter of time before they find him. Then, under the old wreck of a car nearby, he digs a hidden pit, though it's not yet clear what he plans to do with it. The next morning, Marcus finally arrives in the small village. By chance, the first place he stops is Chase's little shop to buy a drink. While there, Marcus casually asks if Chase has seen a stranger who often wears a cowboy hat. The question immediately makes Chase realize that Marcus must be looking for Guy. But to protect him, Chase simply shakes his head and says he hasn't seen anyone like that. A short while later, Guy walks into the same shop to grab some food. Chase quietly warns him that a long-haired man dressed in black was there earlier asking questions. Instantly, Guy knows who it is. Marcus has found his trail. Before leaving, Guy tells Chase that if anyone else comes looking for him, they're not to be trusted. Guy leaves and heads back toward his hideout, but he doesn't get far before spotting Marcus nearby, calmly eating breakfast. Their eyes almost meet. Acting fast, Guy slips away into the narrow alleys, vanishing before Marcus can react. Hours later, Marcus's reinforcements finally arrive to assist in the hunt. Marcus asks where Pau, the boss's right-hand man, is. The soldiers explain that Pau is still with the boss but will be joining them soon. Marcus doesn't want to wait. He orders the men to move into the forest immediately. As they spread out through the dense woods, they search for the old cabin that once belonged to Guy's father. Eventually, Marcus spots one of Guy's traps buried beneath the leaves. It's confirmation that Guy is close. What Marcus doesn't realize is that Guy is already watching them through hidden cameras. With a single click, he detonates one of his explosive traps. The blast injures one of Marcus's men. Cold and calculating, Marcus eliminates his wounded soldier on the spot, unwilling to carry any dead weight. The team continues toward the cabin, but Guy launches another trap that releases thick smoke, blinding their vision and throwing them into chaos. Using the confusion to his advantage, Guy escapes on a motorcycle and disappears into the forest roads. Furious, Marcus turns on his remaining two men, blaming them for the failure. Without hesitation, he kills them both. Marcus then calls his boss to report that his entire unit has been wiped out. He demands more troops, warning that capturing Guy won't be as easy as they thought. Back at headquarters, the boss summons Pau and orders him to take every available soldier to reinforce Marcus. But this time, the boss gives a clear instruction: Guy must be captured alive. The weapon project is still valuable, and Guy's expertise is the key. Without wasting another second, Pau gathers a new strike team and sets out for Italy to join the hunt. Back in the village, Guy visits Chase's shop once again. He quietly asks if Chase knows of any place where he could hide from the people hunting him. Chase recalls an old family bunker deep in the forest, a forgotten shelter that could serve as the perfect hideout. Curious, Chase asks who Guy really is, and why dangerous men are after him. Guy explains that he was once a Marine and a weapons specialist who used to work for a private military contractor. He was ordered to design a powerful weapon meant for war, but he refused, believing it would only bring harm to innocent people. His refusal cost him everything, and now his former employer has sent assassins to capture him. Understanding the situation, Chase tells him exactly where to find the bunker. Before leaving, Guy stops by to see Josie, Chase's sister. He apologizes for not being able to keep his promise to visit her cafe. Josie forgives him with a warm smile, and though there's a brief moment between them, they part ways before anything happens. That night, Marcus receives a visit from Pau, who finally arrives from headquarters. Marcus questions why he came alone, and Pau explains that the rest of the troops will arrive within the hour. He also delivers a direct order from their boss. Guy must be captured alive. Marcus doesn't like it, but he agrees to try. Meanwhile, Guy sits by a campfire outside the bunker, lost in thought. The flames flicker against his face as he listens to the silence of the woods. Suddenly, a figure appears from the shadows. It's Chase. Guy tells him to go home, insisting the forest isn't safe, but Chase refuses. He sits down, saying he wants to talk. Chase confides that he dreams of becoming a weapons engineer like Guy, someone who could build advanced technology to protect his country. Hearing that, Guy tells him that once this is all over, he'll teach him everything he knows. When Chase asks what Guy plans to do next, Guy answers with quiet certainty that he only has one plan left: to take down every last man hunting him. As the night grows late, Guy finally tells Chase to leave and head home. The boy reluctantly agrees, leaving the ex-soldier alone by the fire. The next morning, Marcus, Pau, and their soldiers enter the forest, determined to find Guy once and for all. It doesn't take long before Pau spots a small camera hidden high in the trees, part of Guy's surveillance system. Without hesitation, Marcus shoots it down. They continue deeper into the woods until they reach the old cabin where Guy once stayed. Believing he might still be there, Marcus leads his men inside, only to trigger a deadly trap. One soldier is instantly killed. Realizing Guy isn't in the cabin, Marcus and Pau decide to pull back and regroup in the village. When they arrive, they stop in front of Josie's cafe. At that same moment, Chase happens to be outside. His eyes widen in shock at the sight of heavily armed men. Thinking fast, he rushes inside to hide. Pau notices the boy's strange behavior and follows him in. Chase crouches behind a chair just as Pau enters. Before Pau can search, Josie steps in, greeting him and offering food in an attempt to distract him. Frustrated and impatient, Pau gives up and walks out. Once the coast is clear, Chase emerges. Josie asks what's going on, but he refuses to answer and quickly leaves, determined to warn Guy about the large force now in the forest. The next day, Marcus, Pau, and their men return to the woods. They're convinced Guy is still hiding somewhere inside. At that moment, Guy is asleep in his underground bunker, unaware of the approaching danger. But soon, an alarm from his surveillance cameras wakes him up. The hunters have arrived. Not long after, one of Pau's men discovers the entrance to the bunker and alerts the others. A heated argument breaks out between Marcus and Pau. Marcus wants to storm in immediately, certain Guy is inside. Pau, however, insists on waiting, worried that the bunker could be filled with traps. While they argue, Guy quietly slips out through a hidden exit, trying to escape unnoticed. But the soldiers spot him, and a chase begins. Guy leads them deeper into the trees, using his surroundings to his advantage. One by one, the men fall victim to the traps he planted, explosions echoing through the forest. Eventually, Guy is hit in the side, wounded but still alive. He hides in the underbrush until the soldiers move on, then treats his injury using mud to stop the bleeding. An hour later, despite the pain, Guy begins crafting new weapons from the scraps he carries. Improvised rifles, homemade explosives, anything he can use to fight back. That night, the story shifts back to Chase, who's working late at the small shop. Suddenly, the door opens, and he freezes at the sight of Marcus and one of his men walking in. Chase bolts out the back, and a chase erupts through the narrow streets of the quiet town. After a long pursuit, two police officers appear on the road ahead. But before he can reach them, Marcus guns them down without hesitation, leaving Chase horrified and alone. He tries to run again, but this time one of Marcus's men catches him. By morning, Guy sneaks back into the village under the cover of dawn. What he sees stops him cold. The town is crawling with armed soldiers, and Chase has been captured. Then, among the chaos, he spots Josie hiding behind a car. Quietly, Guy approaches her and tells her his plan. He needs her help to lure Marcus and his men to an abandoned church at the edge of town. That's where he'll make his stand. Josie doesn't hesitate. With her brother's life on the line, she agrees. Moments later, she approaches Marcus and Pow, pretending to bargain. She tells them she knows where Guy is, but only if they promise to release Chase. Marcus doesn't take it well and threatens her, but Pow steps in, keeping things calm. He agrees to the deal, promising Chase's release once Guy is caught. Josie points them toward the old church, and soon, the convoy of trucks rolls out. Marcus, Pow, and their soldiers enter the crumbling building, weapons ready. Inside, the silence is thick. Then suddenly, the floor erupts. Guy detonates his homemade bombs, setting off chaos. Smoke fills the air as Guy launches a full assault using his custom-built weapons. One by one, Marcus's men fall. Outside, Guy finishes off the remaining soldiers before heading back into the church to face whoever's left. At last, Marcus steps forward, and the two men clash in a brutal fight. Both are skilled, both relentless, but in the end, Guy overpowers Marcus, using one of his own explosives to finish him. Believing it's over, Guy steps outside, exhausted and bleeding. He opens Marcus's car, only to find Pow inside, holding Chase at gunpoint. Outnumbered and unwilling to risk the boy's life, Guy lowers his weapon and surrenders. Moments later, Pow and his two surviving men load Guy and Chase into a car. As the car speeds through the dark forest, Guy makes his move. He attacks the driver with a stun device, jolting him until he loses control. The vehicle veers off the road and crashes into a tree. Both Guy and Chase survive the impact and quickly crawl out of the wreck. Guy tells Chase to run and hide, while he stays behind to finish what he started. Guy leads Pow and his last remaining soldier toward an abandoned car he had used before. Once there, Guy climbs inside the wreck, quietly setting something up. The soldier opens fire, riddling the vehicle with bullets, but Pow stops him, reminding him that they need Guy alive. When the soldier refuses to listen, Pow turns his gun on him and ends it himself. Now alone, Pow walks to the car and bangs on the door, demanding Guy to surrender. Then, in a sudden flash, the car explodes. The blast throws Pow backward, killing him instantly. Months later, peace has returned. Chase visits someone in a quiet, rural hideout. To his surprise, it's Guy, alive and well. Curious, Chase asks how he managed to survive the explosion. Guy explains that he had modified the old car long ago, building a hidden trapdoor beneath it. Before detonating the bomb, he slipped into the chamber below, leaving only fire and smoke above. Pow never stood a chance. Now Guy says, he's finally free. There's no one left hunting him. A week ago, he tracked down and killed his former boss, ending everything for good. Moments later, Josie arrives, smiling as she joins them. She and Guy are now together, ready to start a new life. They hop on a motorcycle and ride off into the distance as the story comes to a close. So the moral of the story is, if you ever plan to hide from assassins, maybe don't build a secret bunker with Wi-Fi cameras that literally broadcast your location to the enemy.